Tourisme Montréal est ravi de vous accueillir au championnat du monde de juniors de plongeon de la FINA 2022. Visitez montréal.org pour savoir tout ce qui se passe à Montréal et découvrir ce que la ville a de meilleur à offrir. Nous reconnaissons que nous sommes sur un territoire autochtone millénaire, lieu de rencontre et de diplomatie entre les peuples, ainsi que du traité de grande paix. Nous remercions la nation Kanien'kehá:ka-Mohawk de son hospitalité en territoire non cédé.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the athletes competing in the Boys A 1-meter championship final.
Veuillez accueillir les athlètes qui participeront à la compétition.
Please welcome from Croatia, Matej Neveskanin.
Veuillez accueillir de la Croatie Matej Neveskanin.
Representing Canada, Noah Bernard.
Représentant le Canada, Noah Bernard.
Representing Japan, Sanri Ikumi.
Représentant le Japon, Senri Ikuma.
Representing Colombia, Thomas Tamayo Menes.
Représentant la Colombie, Thomas Tamayo Meneses.
Representing Romania, Alexandru Abasola.
Représentant la Roumanie, Alexandru Avasiloae.
Representing the United States of America, Maxwell Miller.
Représentant les États-Unis d'Amérique, Maxwell Miller.
Representing Great Britain, Danny Mabot.
Représentant la Grande-Bretagne, Danny Mabot.
Representing Great Britain, Leon Baker.
Représentant la Grande-Bretagne, Léon Baker.
Representing Brazil, Rafael Pogacar.
Représentant le Brésil, Rafael Pogacar.
Representing Ireland, Jake Passmore.
Représentant l'Irlande, Jake Passmore.
Representing Italy, Matteo Santoro.
Représentant l'Italie, Matteo Santoro.
And representing United States of America, Max Fowler.
Et représentant les États-Unis d'Amérique, Max Fowler.
Your men's A 1-meter championship finalists.
Voici les finalistes pour l'épreuve du 1 mètre garçon catégorie A.
It's always our pleasure to introduce our officiating panel for these events.
Juge arbitre referee Bartholomew Krinicki. Assistant referee Anna Novotna. Judge number 1 Kazuya Sakata. Judge number 2 Maria Elena Carmuza Perez. Judge number 3 Eliza Ann McFarlane. Judge number 4 Olena Pasterina. Judge number 5 Kathleen Emma Shepard. Judge number 6, Lina Elisabeth Dagarde. Judge number 7, Catherine Maliev.
We are back. We are on day 3 of the 2022 Junior World Championships here in Montreal. We are about to get started on the men's A 1 meter event. Just like the girls' 3 meter A event, it was a really long prelim. There was a lot of time in between each dive. Now we're down to the top 12 finalists competing their 5 optionals, their 5 hardest dives with higher DDs than the compulsories. I'm here with Igor Kopecki again. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. And we're underway already. Look at this. 12 divers make the final. Very solid start from Croatia, Matej Neveskanin, who was a bronze medalist at the previous World Junior Championships on the 1 meter. And he starts out strong. Great front 2.5 pike. They're diving in reverse order of finish. So he was 12th. Now we're moving to our Canadian finalist, Noah Bernard. Not the easiest final to make when there are that many divers. He had a very steady preliminary, finishing 11th, so he dives 2nd in the final. Noah dives out of Toronto, his coach. Was and a decision. Now Jose Guerra from Cuba has recently moved to Toronto to lead the coaching there.
A really nice start.
A nice start now. See him shaking his head a little bit. I think he's not as pleased with it as he could have been. Beautiful position. Didn't finish quite as high as we just saw Matej finish, so he didn't get quite the same beautiful straight line before going in the water.
There's a lot less room when you're on the 1 meter compared to the 3 meter, the 10 meter. You have to really work hard to make sure you're technically sound, getting very high up in the air, spinning, and giving yourself enough time before entering the water.
The quickness is rewarded. Quickness and agility are the markers of the 1 meter experts. From Japan, Senri Ikuma. He also competed at the previous, at the 2018 FINA World Juniors. And he is starting with an inward 2.5 somersaults. Standing backwards, spinning towards the board, 2.5 rotations in the tuck position, bent at the knees. Beautiful tuck position. Unfortunately, he goes well past vertical on that.
There's so much strength and power in that dive from him.
Look at that
He
compact
easily
position.
could have done the pike come out way above the board, finding the water. He has a lot more power than he knows.
Yeah, too bad. Low scores for Senri, but from Colombia, Tomas Tamayo, silver medalist at the previous World Junior Championships on 1 meter, back when he was in the B age group. He's putting his hand up. There's something wrong with the number board. The number board is what the divers look at. It tells you what dive you are programmed to do. And that has the final word. Doesn't matter what you said, what the announcer says, what is on your dive sheet. What matters is what that dive number board indicates. So if there is a mistake on that, raise your hand, let the referee know, get everything in order so that he can get ready to do his inward 2.5. Same dive we just saw Senri do. We have 12 divers in this final. Every country is allowed to enter 2 in the preliminary event. And a superior inward 2.5 to what we just saw. Maybe not quite as high and fast, but way more vertical.
A lot more controlled on the bottom. That was a really nice inward 2.5 tuck, a really nice way to start the competition. A 3.1 DD. It's really helpful when you start with a big dive, you get those big scores, push your name up to the top. Some athletes really do like looking at the leaderboard throughout their competition. Others completely stay away from it.
I like looking at the leaderboard when I was diving. That way you don't get destroyed when you accidentally look at something. You're on purpose, you're intentionally looking at it, you know it's there. And then it's a little game. You sort of see how many points you need. Some athletes find that horrible, and it gets you in the wrong headspace. From Romania, Alexandru, the same dive. A few of the divers starting with inward 2.5. I would say not quite as strong as the Colombian diver. He rushed that takeoff just a little bit, not quite as high, didn't get quite as vertical an entry.
There's definitely a beauty in having the same dive competed, you know, one after another. We can see a lot of differences in how the athletes do it, where they may go wrong, where they may be better.
And then we also have the benefit of slow motion. We can see how well they grab their hands, what their tuck position actually is, where they're grabbing their legs, or how their pike position is, all those little details. So there's 2 Americans and 2 divers from Great Britain in this final, the only 2 countries to put more than 1 diver in the final. It's nice to have a spread. We are at the World Junior Championships. It's nice to have different countries represented. And here we have Max Miller. He was a bronze medalist at the Pan American Junior Championships back in 2019. And he is starting with an easier, lower degree of difficulty, inward 1.5. So 1 rotation, 1 full rotation less, but pike. So he's bent at the waist, legs straight, and look at that toe point and leg extension as he's going in the water. Really nice form. And you can see with his takeoff, he's probably capable of doing the inward 2.5, but elects to go with a lower degree of difficulty dive. Maybe to just start out with a little more confidence, a simple dive, not throw nerves into it. Or maybe his inward 2.5 isn't as good as it looks like it should be from that inward 1.5. To Great Britain, the other country with 2 divers in the final. Danny Mabbott starting backwards. So the exact opposite direction that we just saw Max go. Back 1.5 somersaults pike. This is probably one of the harder dives to put straight in. Usually divers have a lot of power. You've got to come out really early to be able to control this dive.
He worked really hard on the bottom. Once he hit the water, he tuck saved, pulled his knees really tight to his chest, toes pointed, 0 splash.
On the board now, Leon Baker. He's a pretty dynamic diver. I watched him in the warm-ups. Very quick off the board, very quick position, spins really quickly, jumps high, powerful. Not a surprise that he's in the final. During the pandemic, he won a gold medal in the virtual synchronized 3-meter event in the Grand Prix event of 2021 when we were playing around with technology. And he's starting with inward 2.5.
Not too bad.
Yeah, very fast. Again, backed off a little bit. Like we talked about, you just got to wait for that board to go right up and over. He spins quickly, but brings up a little bit of water and looks like he's moving away from the board. It makes it a little bit harder to line up. By lining up, getting his hands perfectly, head still as he goes in the water, to basically rip through the water for that perfect entry. To Brazil, Rafael Fogata. Forward 3.5 somersaults. So he is doing some big dives and doing them with ease. He has a very high hurdle. He spins very quickly. Beautiful tuck positions. His battle is controlling everything to go in vertical. And unfortunately doesn't quite finish all the rotation there. Strong hurdle, a little too far back on the end of the board to get the full power out of it. Look at that, nice tuck position. Just a little under-rotated and misaligned. You can still be a little under-rotated if you grab your hands properly and just suck right in that hole you create with your hands. You can trick the judges into making it look like you went much straighter in. But if you bring up that much water, everybody knows what you just did. And the only Irish diver in this event, the first Irish junior diver to get a medal at the European Junior Championships, Jake Passmore, is going to start with the hardest dive of this event, the inward 2.5, but not in tuck, in pike, leg straight as he spins. Oh, my sheet is wrong.
We were working off of the preliminary sheet. We like to be able to use the scores from the prelims, see if there's room for improvement, see if they did it as well in the prelim as they're about to in the final. He did compete the inward 2.5 pike in the prelim. He didn't score so well on it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to change his inward in the final to the tuck for a better, higher score.
Well, he just did get higher scores on that one. It was a spectacular inward 2.5 tuck, easily done. Often people do the reverse. They take the easier route in the preliminaries and go for the harder dive in the finals. But that was a lot of points for Jake and a great start to this final. Even with that slight miss in the prelims, he ended up third after the preliminaries. To Italy. And Matteo Sotoro. Inward 2.5. Very strong inward 2.5. So a round of inward 2.5s. We get to really compare the takeoffs and the entries. He makes that so easily. Vertical entry, and then in the slow motion you can see him grab his hands just right. And he takes eights pretty much right across the board for 74 points.
A lot of inwards to start. In round 2, we're going to see a lot of fronts.
And despite this being a 3.0 degree of difficulty versus the inward at 3.1, I would contest that this is actually physically a harder dive to do. A few more elements in play, getting your hurdle just right. It is one more full rotation, even though it is forwards.
Not too difficult for Max, it looks like.
Max Fowler with a solid start. Forward 3.5, really small tuck position. So he's just in perfect balance there, right straight up and down, letting the board dip in the water, not letting it distract him. Great job.
What was very noticeable
Max.
was the legs apart when he kicked out.
Especially from our angle.
Yes.
So that finishes our first round. After round 1, it's Matteo Santoro who leads the way from Italy. Again, the divers did a preliminary event where they do 5 dives that are compulsory dives, where they're required to do 1 dive from each direction with a maximum degree of difficulty to the total of those 5 dives. And those scores carry into this. They also did their optionals in the morning. That was just for placement. Their optional dives where the unlimited degree of difficulty is allowed are being replaced now. What they are doing is replacing those 5 optional dives. So half of their score, the score from the first 5 dives this morning, is carried in. And with that, Matteo leads the way from Italy. Tomas from Colombia is in second, and Jake from Ireland sitting in third after round 1 of the final. Starting round 2 from Croatia, Matej. With a forward 1.5 somersault, 2 twists.
And you can see how strong Matej is. The board not even just touching the water, but dipping into it. Really nice technical twister.
Yeah, he's getting his feet wet before he even leaves the board. And I'm really impressed. Really solid diving from this Croatian. To the Canadian, Noah, who's now doing his back 1.5 somersaults pike. So again, key on this one, good balance, coming out early enough that you can control this dive straight in. And no one at this level has any trouble making the dive. It's a little bit of a simpler dive. The trick is getting the control, and it's such a low degree of difficulty at 2.3. Some divers, even though they can't quite do the 2.5, will do it just because the difficulty is so much higher.
Really, really beautiful from Noah on that second dive.
Yeah.
Like you said, smaller DD, but when you're doing it for 7s and 8s, it's extraordinarily helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's diving like that that brought him to the final.
The difference in DD is the back 1.5 pike is a 2.3 and the back 2.5 tuck is a 3.0.
Which is a big difference.
Yeah.
So when you're multiplying that by the judges' scores, that makes, on 7s, a 0.3 difference. 21 times 0.3, or 0.8 actually. We'll let you do that math at home. Pull out your phone.
Japan, forward 3.5 somersault tuck position. We already spoke about how physically demanding this dive is.
Yeah, Senri having a bit of trouble on this event. 2 dives in a row where he's over-rotating. Beautiful tuck positions, but really not. It's like he doesn't quite know where he is in the air. He's coming out too late, not making the adjustment to the water.
His optionals in the prelim weren't that great, getting around 40 to 35 points cumulatively, hoping to see something better for his last 3 dives.
Tomas in second place coming into this dive, his forward 3.5. We're going to see some back-to-back dives. We can do some comparisons as they go. Better than Senri's. Also makes it easily. Nice tight tuck position. It's also over, but he does a little more Houdini on the water.
His overness came more from the bottom half of his body, just relaxing a little bit too much in the spine, not keeping that tummy super tight as soon as he hits the water.
Getting double coached by both coaches there, as they're over excited for their diver to be in the final. Dingo, a Cuban coach, one of the Cuban exports who's coaching in Colombia, in Bogota. Coaching Tomas right now. And Alexandru.
A really, really nice entry, a bit noisy on the board.
Yeah, we can hear it all. We're sitting across from the 1 meter boards on the other side of the pool, and we could hear that loud and clear as he, what we call, stomped the board. Pushed a little too early, a little too firm. Wasn't smooth and silent, getting the maximum recoil out of the springboard. You can see that was a wise decision for him to go with a 2.5 instead of a 3.5. The 3.5 pretty much requires a great smooth hurdle and jump. Here's Max Miller.
Oh, very unfortunate.
Yeah, that is a disastrous come out for him. Looked like he was going pretty well on the takeoff, maybe a tiny bit forward. Just opening head down way too late, rolling over. That is a very disappointing dive. He's standing with his coach there, Oleg, out of Stanford. Reviewing it on the iPad. What went wrong here?
Danny with the reverse 2.5 somersault in the tuck position. This is the first one we're going to see in the final.
So this is pretty much a standard dive now for the boys A. Doesn't mean it's easy.
Doesn't mean it's easy. Much better to go a little bit over than too short, showing the judges he definitely knows how to do the dive and make it. Just needs to be a bit more confident where he is, knowing where his spots are, knowing exactly where to punch his toes and enter that water in the vertical position.
And moving on to Leon.
We're going to see another forward 3.5 somersault tuck position, hoping for that nice rip entry on such a difficult dive.
Yeah, he has no trouble making this dive. Saw him do some very nice ones in practice. Had a little disappointing start. Now, let's see how he comes back.
The men on the 1 meter today, they are giving it everything they have.
This is what makes diving such a challenging sport, is you can have the greatest takeoff, you can jump high and do so many aspects really well. It's like you can be the fastest sprinter in the world, but you have to stop on a dime. And he did not stop on that dime and over-rotated, even though he probably finished higher than the other divers on that forward 3.5. Rafael, who had trouble on his front 3.5, now is doing a forward 2.5 with a full twist, a dive we were seeing earlier a lot on the 3 meters. A few of the men will be doing this on the 1 meter. Also with...
Wow.
Much better. We even heard the board from all the way over here, and he still made it. That's how much power he has.
Power and a lot of control.
Yeah, that's his coach, Ricardo, former Olympic finalist himself on the springboard. And then, interestingly, there's another Irish diver, Oliver Dingley, and it seems to me like Jake has a very similar style. So he's either looked up to him or has similar coaching. But there's certain movements and dynamic movements that remind me of each other.
Wow.
Hard dive, makes it look easy.
He's got a great coach here with him, Mark Holdsworth. They're definitely a very great team together. That was a really nice back 2.5 tuck.
Yeah. See only 6s there in the scores from the judges. Partly just a little bit lower back arch as he's coming out. If you can open up from your dive and just be flat as a board all the way through the entry, that's when you'll see the judges start throwing up higher scores. Above 7s. Mateo, the leader. Can he stay in the lead with his forward 3.5? Haven't seen a great front 3.5 yet today.
No, we haven't. And when they are great, they're great. Everybody just going over, rolling over on these forward 3.5 tucks.
So you know it's hard. When you're spinning fast, it is much harder. When you have a good takeoff, though, it is easier to get it in. Maybe not believing in them, in their own power in the takeoffs. All the divers have gone over so far in their forward 3.5s.
Max.
So he'll relinquish the lead. Well, he's still in the lead, but letting the others catch up a little bit brings him back to the field. Max Fowler with the reverse 2.5.
That was a brilliant hurdle and takeoff. A very, very technical. I saw truly nothing wrong with it. Really beautiful up into the dive. Just slightly over.
Yeah, we're seeing doors open here. No one is staking a claim to the medals just yet. We've seen everyone just do one great dive, maybe then slightly off on the next one. We'll take a look at the standings here. Mateo maintains his lead with a slight miss on his forward 3.5. Now Tomas jumps all the way up to second. Jake is sitting in third. So we have Italy, Colombia, Ireland round out the top 3. And Matej from Croatia, who was 12th after the preliminaries, is sitting in 4th, just out of the medals right now. When divers are missing, there's a chance for a dark horse to sneak in there. They dive well. He's got lower degree of difficulty, but he is diving well. So if he can continue to do that, it's going to be very exciting. Now he comes with a higher degree of difficulty dive. This is his reverse 2.5 somersaults tuck as Matej starts us off here in the 3rd round of the boys A 1 meter final.
I think Matej is really using those first 2 dives. He's on a roll here. He's feeling great. The adrenaline is really working in his favor. He's so strong. He gets so high off the board. Beautiful reverse 2.5. Not over rotating, coming out right when he was supposed to. Beautiful entry.
Yeah, he's not messing around. He's done 3 great dives to get started. 2 left. Very steady. Steady and quality. Nice lead in for Noah, who gets to follow that dive with his own reverse 2.5 tuck. So the judges' scores are up there. They just saw a good one. All Noah has to do is do a good one for himself, and the Canadian will get some good scores and maintain his momentum of 2 good dives so far.
Wow. It was a bit worrisome with how noisy the board was. The nerves kick in. You don't do your hurdle like you normally do. You're not as patient. He took his time going off the board, saw his spot, grabbed and squeezed the tuck a little bit just to make it. Beautiful kick out.
Yeah, kudos to Noah. He was in the corner of the board. You could see him kind of wobble, but not just held it together, but did a great job with that dive.
That was really
even
impressive.
on a good hurdle, that's a good dive. Senri has gone flying over on his first 2 dives. It's time for him to start going straight in. Back 2.5. So he's got big difficulty on all of his dives. Outstanding takeoffs, great tuck positions. Just look for him to get his air awareness dialed in.
There we go.
Dives, that's how he made the final.
Receiving only 3.5-4 in the prelim on this dive. Really amping it up for the final. We're gonna see some much higher scores. Obviously he has a lot of room to make up from his first 2 dives, but seems to be back in action.
Yeah, 58 points on that dive. Missing that in the prelims, doing these dives off, it sounds like he's a bit of an inconsistent diver. Different dives hitting, different dives missing at different points in the competition. A lot of potential on him once he gets consistent, gets his feel a little bit more down. He certainly has the potential to threaten for medals. And now, Tomas with his low degree of difficulty, back 1.5 somersaults pike. So really here, got to be steady for him to maintain his spot up in the medals.
It's interesting because, again, we've seen it already in this final. Going from the difficult dive, a back 2.5 somersault, getting really low scores in the prelim, 2.5 threes. Doing the easier, way less DD dive, the back 1.5 pike, with the intention of getting a higher score, keeping the momentum throughout the final.
And it does, you know, one strategy is to have dives that you can just put in and get high scores from the judges on, build that sort of inner psychology that you're just going for 8s and going for great rip entries every single dive. And Tomas with a good back 1.5, over 40 points. This is kind of a, you know, the good dives in this event are going to be over 60. Alexandru. Well, we've seen a few good dives.
I feel like the pressure's on.
Yeah. They're trying to show off their reverses now. Maybe not quite as nice a finish as Noah, but certainly as high. That had potential to really go down well. 57 points on that, 6.5s, no 7s, just missing a cleaner entry, really. To the United States, Max Miller. We talked about the difficulty of a backwards 2.5. You don't get the benefit of that extra bounce on the board. You're doing this from a standing position. So balance and tuck position, the 2 keys on this dive. A decent back 2.5. Now, he went over-rotated a little bit more than Tomas just did on his back 1.5. Tomas had 44 points, I believe, on his back 1.5. We'll see how many points this gets. It'll get lower from the judges, but it might still get overall higher. Oh, 45. So, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, essentially. But obviously that had a chance for much more. Danny Mabbitt with his inward 2.5 somersaults tuck. Most of the others have a lot of them started out with this dive. He's putting this more in the middle of his list. Sitting in 8th coming into this round. Well, not quite finding vertical, these guys today. We've seen a few great dives, but a few misses.
A lot of rolling over, almost as though they don't know the height and speed that they're getting. The adrenaline's kicked in. They're really, you know, overcompensating. They want to be their strongest, but they're not potentially used to that in practice all the time. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these athletes roll over.
Leon. With his back 2.5. And again, he has no trouble making this dive. Great springs on this athlete. but this time he doesn't jump as high as he normally does and ends up just a little under-rotated. Almost didn't even get his hands stretched all the way out.
Very unfortunate. Just pushing himself from the board, pushing back, not getting all the height he's used to.
Smiles of disappointment in that case from his coach. As we move on to the Brazilian jumper, Rafael Fogazza. Reverse 2.5 somersaults. He does the reverse 3.5 on 3 meter. Not many divers doing that dive in these age groups. There are a few, and he does it with ease. So this will be an easy dive. Again, now this is going to be whether or not he can control it.
Very controlled.
And that's the best control we've seen so far. Just way up there, kicking out with great control. Great entry, really. Slight over rotation, but just staying. We talked just a little bit earlier about how if you keep your body just nice, flat, and still, you will get over 7s from some of the judges. Not everyone liked it enough, but a few 7.5s there. He was 6th going into that round. That jumps him up quite a bit. Jake was in 3rd coming into this round, doing the hardest dive we'll see on this board. Forward 3.5 somersaults, not tuck, but pike.
Wow. There was some issues on the hurdle.
Yeah.
Not sure what that was going to look like. Arms not all the way above his head, taking one off to the side, which can really cause problems. He may manage to, maintain some control in that dive. It's such a big dive, really high DD of 3.3.
There is not much room for error on that dive. He did the inward 2.5 pike in the preliminaries, kept his front 3.5 pike in the final. A lot of potential for a high score on that one. He was even back from the end of the board and still went over. And now, the Italian Matteo with his forward 2.5 with 1 full twist.
Not too bad. Could have been better.
Yeah, although he's leading, it was a steady dive. High degree of difficulty at 3.2. Maybe just a little bit forward, making it a little harder to go straight in. But you're kind of desperate to get that dive there when you've got that much work to do in the air. And look at this leaderboard. Matej from Croatia, who started the event in 12th place, is leading currently. Let's see what Max can do about it with his reverse twist. So we don't see this that much anymore.
No, we don't, but very stunning.
Beautiful twisting action. So a lot of divers lately have been electing to do less twists, but add a rotation in. And now he comes back to the classic multiple twists. 2.5 twists with 1.5 reverse somersaults. 3.0 on the 1 meter. Still high degree of difficulty. And he does it very well. That jumps him up into 3rd place. So the leaderboard changes once again at the end of this round. In 1st place, the Croatian all the way up in 1st, 353. Only 5 points behind is 3rd place. Right now in 2nd, Matteo, 349. 348 is Max Fowler from the United States. And Tomas from Colombia in 4th. Jake from Ireland in 5th. And Rafael is sitting in 6th for their top 6. Noah, the Canadian, just out of the top 6 at 7th. And here's Matej starting round 4. Now he drops down to another lower degree of difficulty dive. He's built a tiny lead. Croatia, unfortunately, knocking Canada out of the World Cup in soccer. Yet we still cheer for Matej here because his diving is very nice.
His
No
diving
hard
has been
feelings.
really, really nice in this final. A nice simple back 1/2 pike, slightly over rotated.
Yeah, that's probably not what he needed to hang on to his lead. He needed a superior back 1.5. 39 points only. We saw other divers doing that dive for 44. So he's going to lose ground. He will not hang on to his lead after the round 4.
Noah from Canada, inward 1.5 somersault pike position. It definitely is a big jump from the inward 1.5 pike on the 1 meter to the inward 2.5 tuck. It definitely takes some time.
It's physically and mentally a big jump. Doing a good inward 2.5 on 1 meter psychologically feels like you're just going to go right over the board. And it takes a little while before you can do that comfortably, especially in competition. Very nice dive from Noah.
Nonetheless, a rip.
Great entry. Little bit early on his pike save there. Pike saving, bending at the waist, bringing his legs back to give the illusion of verticality, but he actually brought his legs back a little bit too hard, too early, making it look like he under-rotated.
Now we have Senri. We saw a really nice dive from him in the last round. Now we have the reverse 2.5 somersault tuck position.
Let's see if back and reverses are his thing in the final. He did do a great back 2.5 reverse. Similar style dive.
Wow.
Quite nice. Very good entry. We talked a little about staying flat as a board in your lower back when you come out on these dives to get rewarded extremely highly. Beautiful tuck position, beautiful entry.
Receiving 19.5 points higher than in the prelim score of just 43.5.
Yeah, he still got some 7.5s, even with a little lower back bend. And Tomas just edged out of 3rd place last round. He's going to do his same dive. Same dive we just saw Senri do. Reverse 2.5 somersaults tuck.
Wow.
Extremely similar styles.
Yeah.
Makes it easily. Arches a lot in the kick out for my taste. Makes it look like he's not confident coming out. Hard to give that an 8 when really the entry was spectacular. The height was spectacular.
Well, it does just go to show and prove that it's not just the entry the judges are looking for. They're looking for every detail.
They want to see your confidence. Pretend you're confident, Tomas. From Romania, Alexandru is getting ready with his 4th round dive. Also doing, just as we saw Max earlier, reverse 1.5 with 2.5 twists.
Nice.
So, quite good. Didn't finish quite as easily as Max did.
Definitely a difficult dive. There's a lot happening, especially the more you twist, the more difficult it is to keep your body straight, keep your legs together. We saw a tiny bit of legs coming apart in that dive.
A low of 4 there. One of the judges really doesn't like it when your feet come apart. And the others were a little more forgiving with their 5s. All right, well, here's another big dive. We're seeing a few very big dives today. Reverse 2.5. We've seen almost everyone do it in tuck. This is going to be with straight legs in pike.
Wow.
It was a good dive.
It was a good dive. It is definitely a difficult dive.
Yeah, at 3.2, he's not going to get that great scores from the judges as he went in a bit loose, kind of knees not showing that nice tight extension. And only 51 on that. A good reverse 2.5 tuck. You're getting over 60 points. So he's gave a few points away on that last dive. He won't hang on to his 3rd spot, I don't believe.
Another forward 3.5 somersault in the tuck position from Danny, Great Britain. Really nice and controlled in the hurdle. Great takeoff. I feel like it could have finished the dive a little bit higher, but he controlled the bottom really nicely. Nice clean entry. Tiny bit of splash, but really nothing that's too crazy.
Yeah, just a little bit bent as he went in. It's one of the better 3.5s we've seen in this event. I don't think any of the 3.5s outscored Matej's front 2.5 pike. So a lower degree of difficulty. He did his front 2.5 pike for 7.5 eighths. Probably outscored everyone trying to do the harder difficulty dives. And now Leon gets time for redemption. Reverse 2.5 tuck. He wants to make up for that missed back 2.5.
For leaning forward in the hurdle, he stayed calm, stood right back up, kind of used his arms in a bit of a different way for that takeoff.
Yeah, he barely did an arm swing. We thought he was going to land closer to us, but he saved that easily. A lot of room for error on that. And he did stay tight on the entry, just maybe didn't quite get his arms back far enough to disappear into the water. And now, Rafael trying to fight it back his way up from 6th place to a medal. He's got the difficulty left.
This was his worst dive in the prelim. Lots of room for improvement. Only receiving 3.5, 4 on this dive.
And still finishing 4th after the preliminaries. So a good one here will bode very well coming into the last round.
Significantly better.
He's going to jump up in the standings. Very solid round for him. Good degree of difficulty. Excellent dive.
It is definitely a little bit difficult to control the bottoms on the 1 meter because you're doing these really big dives, lots of flips, and just not a lot of room. And it's much easier to find the water, spot it, and get out that rip entry when you have a lot more time before you end up hitting the water. But with these big dives, they don't have a ton of time.
Yeah. I'd say judges definitely being a bit stingy here in the finals. Those were low scores for that dive. All right, let's see if what Jake's got here on his reverse 2.5. He just went with the hardest front 3.5 pike. This is, even at 3.0 for him, has got to be quite easy.
Well, he made it look easy.
He's got some support in the stands.
Team Great Britain.
And the Irish flag up
and the
there.
Irish flag. A little bit of toes and legs. Not together, but pulls it together for the end. That was really, really nice entry. And still, 6.5 is a little low for my liking.
Yeah, maybe some of the judges don't like the flutter kick in the air. Still over 60 points on that, well, close to 58. He slides up ahead of Matej. And here's Matteo with his reverse 2.5 tuck. The Italian sitting in great shape now. He's in 2nd place. A good reverse will jump him right up into 1st. And that's a good reverse.
That was a really good reverse. Definitely push him into that 1st place.
Maybe even a little higher than Jake's, and he kept his legs together the whole way. Oh, still just a little flutter from the side in slow motion.
It was just a little more visually pleasing than Jake's. Still both really nice dives.
A little bit of a cleaner entry. He'll get higher scores. That'll be over 60 points. Drawing a few 8s. That's the highest scores we've seen so far in this event. The highest scoring total of the event so far. That's going to jump him up into 1st. 20 points ahead of Tomas, who's in 2nd. Max with a back 2.5. Harder to get 8s on this dive than what Matteo just had. Max just switched boards.
That was a good notice.
Maybe this is his back takeoff board and the other one is his hurdle board. You don't see that very often in competition, that divers will use 2 different boards. Usually you want to just get used to one. It shows a lot of flexible thinking on his part.
It's very true.
Some coaches like that. Other coaches do not. They want you to sort of stick with your plan. I think it's good to be flexible.
Well, yeah,
Go
especially
where the
when
line
you
is smaller.
go to a new pool. Always get used to a different board.
Figure out which board you like best for whichever skill you want to use it for. So Max hangs on to 3rd. After that dive, Mateo jumps up to 1st place. Tomas from Colombia is in 2nd. Max Fowler from the United States is 3rd in a virtual tie with Ireland's Jake Passmore. They are both at 396. Max Fowler with less than 1 point ahead. And right behind, the Croatian at 393, Matej Nevaskinin. And 10 points behind Matej. And 6th is Rafael Fogazza. So we've got a tight race. Top 5 are all really going to depend on this last dive for the medals. Mateo has a comfortable lead.
I really love the comeback from the Croatian Mateo. It's been really neat to see coming from 12th, going into the final round in 5th.
And Matej has a slight difficulty advantage now. Mateo stacked his dive so that all his difficulty was up front. He's leading now, but his lowest degree of difficulty is last. Matej, on the other hand, has his highest degree of difficulty now. He's done some great dives. He slightly dropped his last one, but it was a low difficulty. He's got a chance here to make a big move again. Well, he's not going to make a big move on that. That looked like it had a lot of promise, and then just didn't get up high enough to make this dive elegant enough on the finish.
Just a little more focused on the rotation opposed to the jump and then the rotation.
That'll be a disappointing finish. Otherwise, great event for Matej. Jumped up from 12th place. He'll probably still hang on to the top 5, top 6. Great job in the final with some great diving, contending, leading for a portion of the event. Not everyone can say they were doing that. And now Noah has been having a very steady event. He's going to finish with the back twist. So back 1.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists at 2.5 degree of difficulty.
Well, that was a really nice, smooth finish for Noah in his first, you know, big international event. It's really exciting to be making final.
Yeah, great to see him having 6 solid dives. Great event. Really nice entries all around. Showing why he made the final. Diving well in the final. That's just a great feeling. Big hug
Showing
from his coach,
consistency.
and a decision originally from Edmonton, national team diver out of Edmonton, who then moved to Toronto. Is now coaching in Toronto. And Jose Guerra, the Cuban, now also coaching in Toronto. Powerful coaching team, powerful team in Toronto. These days, that program has really been built up. Largely under the leadership of Gilles Mcomb, who just left Toronto for Calgary, but was there for a long time working that program. And Senri doing his reverse 2.5 twister. Wow. Senri really has the takeoffs of the event. Just steady, high, fast, beautiful positions. Once he finds vertical a little more precisely, he'll be much more dangerous. .58 points on that reverse twist. Very solid dive. And Senri will hang out in 2nd place until the other divers knock him down. He was in 7th after the last round. Impressive performance, his total 429. Tomas with his bid for a medal. High degree of difficulty at 3.2. Forward 2.5 with 1 full twist. Well, that's too bad. I'd like to see the guys from the lower positions. He was in 5th. He had a chance to challenge for a medal. That's not going to put much pressure on the guys above him. He'll get low judges' scores, unfortunately. Needs to close that pike up a little bit more. Just missed the board a little bit, probably panicked a little bit in the air. By missing the board, he didn't quite catch the rhythm just right. It was a bit noisy, didn't get maximum spring. Still a good performance, great to be in the final, be in contention in the finals at the World Junior Championships. And now Alexandru, probably out of striking range, sitting in 9th place coming into this dive. And it's a low degree of difficulty.
Hopeful to finish off on a nice note regardless. It always feels good knowing you've done what you could. That was really nice.
Very nice entry. A simple dive, back 1.5 pike, but simple in degree of difficulty, not simple to go straight in. He does quite a good job of that. Again, as he opens up, we'd like to see less movement in his lower back, less arch, less separation from the legs and the rest of his body. Solid performance from Alexandru, from Romania.
We are about to see from Maxwell a very intense dive, not one we see often. With a DD of 3.6, a reverse 1.5 with 3.5 twists. So we've seen a few reverse 1.5s with 2.5 twists.
Yeah. I haven't seen many people in the world ever do this dive on 1 meter. So it means he's a great twister.
He saved it for the final. Not the board work I'm sure he wanted for that dive. If he is competing it, I'm not surprised if he could do it well, but he just really missed the board on this dive. It was extraordinarily noisy. You could hear it and you could see it.
Yeah. Likely coming from a gymnastics or a trampoline background, judging by his twisting style, with the hands sort of up forward like that. Very good twisting action, but like you said, you need to have almost a perfect hurdle, perfect rotation to really get that dive in. Unfortunately for him, that did not pay off. That might have just cost him a medal. In fact, they haven't told his score on the leaderboard yet. But it actually did not do him any favors. All right, Danny Mabbott with his forward 2.5 with a full twist. Hard, but significantly easier than a reverse 3.5 twist.
Yes. Just a bit heavy on the bottom there. Probably would have been, you know, felt better for him to finish off the event with less splash. Still overall a really hard dive, a really great performance from Danny.
Yeah, unfortunately not his best execution on that last dive. It's nice, always nice to finish on a strong dive. You have high hopes, high degree of difficulty. You have it there to climb up. Maybe if he was more in contention going into that, it would have given him that little extra to put it in. And now Leon Baker, a nice reverse 2.5, doing the same dive we just saw. Forward 2.5 with a full twist.
Receiving only 3.5, 4 in the prelim, hoping for a little bit more in the final.
Yeah, and completely different style. So he does the twist first and then the rotation.
We saw that yesterday on the 10 meter, quite rare to see on the springboard.
It's very hard when you do the twist first to get enough rotation. And you saw he actually left a lot of room. He could have piked a little bit deeper. He would have had more time to get a better entry on the end of that. And now we move to Rafael Fogazza from Brazil. Was in 6th coming into this round, but just out of the medals. He's got an inward 2.5 tuck. This can be a very steady dive. If he can get over 70 points, then he really puts pressure on those last few.
Wow.
And that's going to be close.
A big explosion from the team, the coaches after that dive. That was a really beautiful inward 2.5 tuck.
They know this was a good chance for a medal. Sensational toe points, sensational positions. Could have been a little bit more flat body line going in like we talked about. Again, low scores for him. 65 points, close to that 70. He jumps up there. He is leading now. Now he just needs to fend off the divers that were ahead of him before. But he's done his job. Slipped 2 points ahead of his fellow South American, Tomas, to the Colombian's chagrin. And Jake with his bid for a medal. For 2.5, 1 twist.
Wow, it's exciting.
That was a lot smoother takeoff. It sounded better.
He made that look so easy. Probably one of the easiest looking full outs we've seen today on the 1 meter event.
Very good dive. Just a little bit rolling at the end. He didn't need to roll that. He could have just put that straight in.
The judges being extra tough today in this final. 5.5s on a dive I felt was really nice, especially for this final. We didn't see the greatest diving, especially for the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, there's always the possibility that it's the angle that we're watching from where we don't quite see those entries quite in the same way. But certainly we do see the takeoffs and can see that quality. So here's Mateo's strategy. Lowest degree of difficulty. He is leading by a fair margin, but a significant drop in degree of difficulty. Very well executed. He's going to get a medal, but is that enough to hang on to first place? The Italians are excited. The flags are waving. Beautiful dive. Probably the best back 1.5 we see in this event.
Yeah.
The top one we saw so far was a 44.
And that was a 49.45.
And he'll hold on to first place so far with 2. He's only got 1 diver to go.
Our last diver of the event, Max Fowler. And we're 2.5 somersault tuck position, saving that backward standing dive for the last dive of the event.
Maybe he didn't switch boards and I was just looking at the wrong Max.
Needing 72.8 points for first place. That would require 8.5. Not 100% sure.
The crowd is cheering for it. I don't think so.
I don't believe he's going to get it. The judging has been really tough and difficult this event.
He does jump up to 3rd, or hangs on to 3rd. He was in 3rd for a lot of this event. The results are in, and Matteo from Italy hangs on to the gold medal position. Italy will celebrate that. Ireland with its first junior world medal. Jake Passmore in 2nd place with some great board rides and high jumping. And then the US is able to, Max hangs on to that 3rd place at 4:51. Very close event. Just behind him for 4th is Rafa from Brazil. And the Colombian Tomas in 5th place. Matej from Croatia, to me the surprise of the event. Great diver. Doing some great dives, huge quality in his skills, moving from 12th all the way up to 6th in the final.
And only 30 points behind first place. It was a really impressive final. It was a fight for the top 3 the whole time. It kept things interesting. You know, a couple of improvements for their first 2 dives, but other than that, it was a really nice final. Igor, thank you for joining me.
Thank you once again, Courtney. Always a pleasure.
Next up, the women's 10-meter synchro event.
highlight package for your enjoyment. Results from the men's 1 meter on the highlight reel right now, put together by our crack production team. Thanks to their efforts, you get to see some highlights and upcoming an interview with one of our winners. And followed by the girls platform synchro finals.